want hot takes? No, I'm not going to apologize to Ryan Day. Everything we said about Ryan Day up into the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, we welcome you in again. The Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. Happy Tuesday. I know it's storming outside, or at least the majority of the worst part of the storm has made its way through, of course, but we welcome you in. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us here today. A ton to dive into. The Cincinnati Reds looking to extend their win streak to 6 tonight. Will they play tonight? That's going to be the big question. But if they do, they have a chance to take the series, or at least split the series. I mean, you win tonight. That means 6 straight wins. You still have 2 more with the Cardinals, but an NL Central foe at that. And the Reds coming off a big win last night. We'll touch on that coming up here in a moment. We'll talk about, obviously, the more of the fallout from over the weekend, the NFL draft. You've had more time to sit on it. We'll talk about where some of the top Buckeyes ended up in the NFL. Of course, we'll dive back into some of the fallout in Cleveland. Shedeur Sanders, of course, Dylan Gabriel, the 2 quarterbacks that they added, a crowded quarterback room. Who will come out on top when it's all said and done? We make our predictions for that as we sit here in late April. It's almost May, which is wild. The next big thing on the calendar for the NFL, of course, will be the schedule reveal. We know who your teams are playing, when they play them. There you go. So that'll be key as far as that's concerned. We'll get to that coming up around the corner. But again, happy Tuesday, the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. The phone number to call into the show if you want to call in and weigh in on any of the topics at hand, or if you have something you want to get off your chest, you're more than welcome to call in. 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. The Cincinnati Reds are 16-13. They're 3 games above 500. They are going to finish the month of April with the winning record. Now, that's a big deal. Why is it a big deal? Well, things weren't trending that well early April. I mean, things were getting kind of ugly. They were not scoring runs. They were not hitting the baseball. They lost 3 straight games, where instead of us talking about the fact that the rotation held an opponent to 1 run or less for 3 straight games, we couldn't focus on how great of a storyline that was, because the bigger storyline was that in a stretch of 3 games where you held an opponent to 1 run or less for 3 straight games, you didn't score a run for those 3 straight games. I mean, you want to talk about one of the worst stretches of baseball that I've witnessed, and we've watched a lot of bad baseball collectively as Reds fans. That's pretty impressive. That seems to me to be one of the biggest stretches of the season. When we talk about the fact that we are 1 month into the season, the biggest stretch of this has been that 3-game losing streak, or that losing stretch where, of course, they got shut out for 3 straight games, because people cannot seem to wrap their minds around the fact that this team actually can hit the baseball. This team can actually score runs. This team was not hitting the ball well to start the season. They were not scoring runs to start the season. And it looked as if the front office had mightily failed this organization, this roster, Terry Francona, their star players, and Matt McClain and Ellie De La Cruz. It appeared that the front office had massively failed this group. And the bottom line is, the front office, which is something that I know you guys do not love to do, the front office deserves their flowers. The front office deserves some praise, at least 1 month in. Now, a lot of you will say, well, the front office, why don't we just wait to see how the season ends up? That's fine. Ellie De La Cruz is in the midst of a 12-game hitting streak. Good job. I'm not going to say, well, let's just see how Ellie looks by the end of the season. You have guys playing out of their mind right now like Gavin Lux. Gavin Lux, of course, now that he's in a role with the Reds where he's an everyday player, he has maximized that. He's the best hitter average-wise in baseball right now. Is he actually the best hitter in baseball? I don't know. But if we're going to say, good job, Gavin, why can't we say good job, front office? We don't say, Gavin Lux, good job, but I'm not that impressed. Let me see where you're hitting in September. That's a fair and valid argument, but that's not how you enjoy life. I don't know how people enjoy sports that way. How can you, what is the point of even watching the Reds right now? What is the point of even listening to the Reds right now if every time they do something good, you're going to say, yeah, that's good, but let's see if they're doing that in September? Because when the Reds play poorly right now at times, When they play poorly right now, you don't sit there and say, "Yeah, well, I know he's playing poorly right now, but let's see where he's at in September." No, you want to get rid of him. For instance, look at Jamir Candelario. All of you are adamant Candelario needs to be cut, released, let go, put in the rearview mirror, right? How come none of you are saying Candelario is kind of struggling, but man, let's just see where he's at in September? Why do we do that? Why don't we do that for players who are struggling, but the players who are playing out of their minds, we sit there and say, yeah, but show me where you're at in September. Now, by the way, Justin Kinner with you here, the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Happy Tuesday, 3:07 here in the Miami Valley, talking Reds to open up the show today. I understand that mentality. You don't want to be duped. You don't want to fall for, man, Gavin Lux is playing lights out. Austin Hayes is hitting .388 with 5 home runs and 13 RBIs in 13 games right now. Austin Hayes has been a hell of an addition. We're going to hear from Charlie Goldsmith coming up here later on in the show. He had a lot to say on Off the Bench with me and the guys earlier today, so we have some of that interview coming up for you here shortly. A lot of good stuff to take away there. What is the sustainability probability when it comes to this team? The sustainability probability for this team. What's the likelihood that this team can keep this up? What's the likelihood that the Cincinnati Reds are going to continue to get contributions, of course, from guys like a Gavin Lux, like an Austin Hayes, and Noelvi Marte? You look at Jose Trevino, again, the catcher. I've spent a lot of time on him this season. I've been beyond impressed with what he's brought to the table. We're going to talk about some of the decisions that have to be made when Tyler Stevenson comes back, something we've talked about in the past week, but just something also to keep in mind as we sit here on a Tuesday. Again, the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. The Reds back in action tonight. We've got a big one coming up later on. The Reds take game 1 against the Cardinals last night and looking to, at the very least, with the win tonight, split the series. We'll have a chance to win it tomorrow. Of course, with Andrew Abbott on the mound, and then coming up on Thursday, Hunter Green will have a chance to close it out. The Reds just got done sweeping the Rockies. Can they sweep the Cardinals? So the question I have for you as we open up the phone lines, 937-518-1410, are you buying into the Reds yet? They're 16-13. They're a game behind the Cubs for the lead in the NL Central. If the playoffs started today, which I get is ridiculous, but we are officially 1 month into the season. March 27th, the season started. What do we got today? I mean, it's April 29th as we sit here right now. We're 1 month into the season. The Reds are 3 games above 500. The Reds are a game out of first place in the NL Central. The Reds are holding on to that final wild card spot as we sit here on April 29th. The bottom line is this team's pretty damn good. This team is not just pitching well, they are hitting well. I wanted to spend some time on this on yesterday's show, but the Reds are hitting .254 on the season collectively as a team. That's the sixth best in baseball. The Reds have scored over 153 runs on the season. That is the third most in baseball. Only 2 teams have scored more runs. Only 2 teams have produced more runs than your Cincinnati Reds, and that is the big bad New York Yankees and your hated rival, the Chicago Cubs. Only 2 teams in baseball have produced more runs. 5 teams in baseball have collectively hit better than the Cincinnati Reds this season. That's it. The Cincinnati Reds are 11th in power. They have the 11th most home runs in baseball, and I don't even think they have a very good track record with power hitters in this lineup. But again, they're finding ways to get it done. Whether it's Austin Hayes in his 12-13 games since coming off the IL, Gavin Lux, who has emerged as a true star for this team. Obviously, Jose Trevino, who has proven was supposed to be a big addition in the offseason as a backup catcher, has proven that he could be an everyday catcher if it ever came down to it. He basically has. This team is not just pitching well, they're hitting well. They're 16-13, a game back of the Cubs for the division, sitting in the final wild card spot as we sit here on April 29th. If this team was 10 games under 500, if this team was bottom 10 in batting average and in everything else, on base percentage, and they weren't hitting the ball to the ballpark and they weren't pitching well, all of you would be panicking 1 month into the season. So if you could panic 1 month into the season, if we could want to cut Jamir Candelario 1 month into the season for not playing well, then why can't we be happy about where the Reds are in a positive light? The Reds are winning baseball games right now. They are winning series. They have an elite rotation. Their bullpen's been lights out. This is one of the best hitting teams in baseball. Why are we being so skeptical about the Cincinnati Reds. 937-518-1410. 937-518-1410. That's the number to call in, jump in on the conversation. They're not just a top pitching team in baseball. They're one of the best hitting teams. You have a superstar manager in Terry Francona. You have an MVP candidate in Ellie De La Cruz, who has a 12-game hitting streak as we currently sit here right now. Hunter Green very well easily could compete to be one of the favorites to come away with the Cy Young this year. 937-518-1410. Let's get to your calls when we come back. More of the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We'll be right back.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
Our forecast calling for showers and then partly cloudy sky.
forward.
The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, game 2 between the Reds and the Cardinals coming up later on here tonight. 6:40 going to be the first pitch. 6:10 coverage will begin right here on Dayton's radio home for your Cincinnati Reds, 1410 Wing AM. The Reds are 16-13, a game out of first in the NL Central. If the playoffs started today, well, they're holding down that final wild card spot. You guys don't care about playoffs right now. I get that. It's April. It's about to be May. But I do think that 1 month is a good sample size of games to be able to kind of get a good feel for what you're working with, at least, right? Like, this isn't like a 1 week start to the season and we're overreacting to a 7 or an 8-0 start or a 6-2 start. They're 16-13. They've won 5 straight. And they've won 5 straight right now, and they're doing it in different ways. They're putting up a lot of runs and holding opponents to a little bit of runs. They've given up some runs and had to outscore opponents. They've done a good job of navigating through this month of April, allowing Terry Francona to really, truly get a real good grasp of what he's working with. I love everything about what we're seeing from Cincinnati. A lot of you out there can and possibly will bring up the fact that, okay, this is a team that has played a lot of weak opponents. Well, you're right. This is also a team that when they played weak opponents last year, they would blank the bed. You know, you would sweep the Yankees and then you'd get swept by the Tigers after. Remember that? Like, that's what this team did. They lost to bad teams last year. To their credit, they're playing bad teams and making them look like bad teams. Now, technically, they did just drop 2 or 3 against the Marlins, not even just last week. That's a series that they should have had. But they kind of make up for it by sweeping the Rockies and take game 1 against the Cardinals last night. But I do bring up the fact that this team is 16-13, and they're doing it in convincing fashion. They have a top 5 pitching staff in baseball when you combine the rotation along with the bullpen. That's been lights out. You have a legitimate candidate for Cy Young out of the National League, and obviously Hunter Green at this point. You have a legit MVP candidate in Elly De La Cruz, who is in the midst of a 12-game hitting streak as we currently sit here to close out the month of April. They're right there in the mix of things in the division and the wild card. This is exactly what you wanted. You don't just want to be competitive. You want to be in the mix. You want to be more than just competitive. You want to be in the mix, and the Reds are more than in the mix as we sit here right now. So the question I have is, are you buying into who the Reds are at least 1 month into the season? I see a lot of people saying, well, I'm not happy. I'm not going to be happy until I see them do this in September. Well, that's a miserable way to be happy. All right. Jeimer Candelario has been bad in April. You're accepting that he's bad because he's had a bad April, right? He's bad in April, so you're accepting that he's just a bad baseball player now. But when the Reds are good in April, you won't accept that they're good? How come none of you are stepping to the plate, no pun intended, for Jeimer Candelario and saying, I know he's had a bad, rough April, but let's just see where he's at in September? No, why do we only do that when things are good? All right, Ellie, look, 12-game hitting streak. Well, that's fine, but how about a 12-game hitting streak in September? I mean, come on. Why do we have to be so miserable all the time? Are you buying into the Reds' success here in the month of April? 937-518-1410. Let's go to AJ in Kettering. AJ, thanks for holding, sir. You're on live.
Thanks, Justin. So here's what I'll say. The past week to 10 days have been fun to watch. The first 2 weeks of the season, not so much, especially with all the errors, the lack of hitting. So, we've got literally a month where you've got 2 weeks that were terrible, 2 weeks that have been good. So those juxtaposed against each other, and especially the game where we scored 20 runs, that's going to kind of skew some of those numbers. I will tell you, I'm cautiously optimistic. And it's not because of the pitching. I think the pitching is great. The pitching is going to keep us competitive all season. The Reds are notoriously streaky when it comes to hitting. And if they can keep up what they're doing now, we're good come the end of the season. But I am not ready to commit to thinking that they're going to be able to keep up with the hitting that they have had the past 10 days.
No, and that's fair. And a lot of it too. I mean, like the thing is though, they're not just getting hitting from a couple guys. They're getting it all up and down the lineup, AJ. I mean, TJ Friedel's not getting enough love for, he's near 300. He's hitting close to 300 on the season. Gavin Lux, one of the best hitters in baseball right now. Austin Hayes, since coming off the IL in 13 games, hitting 380 with 5 home runs and 13 RBIs. Obviously, we've talked to, ad nauseum about, the catcher coming in and, basically being a perfect backup for Tyler Stevenson, but has put up in Trevino basically starter numbers at this point. So, and then let's not forget Noel V. Marte, who's finally emerging as a legitimate, contributor for this team. They're getting it all up and down the lineup. That's what's been most impressive to me. It's not that they're winning because of Ellie, McClain, and Friedel, and then they're filling in the gaps. They're winning because of all the new additions, and I think that that's what's been fascinating 1 month in.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I agree with you 100%. I just hope that they have the stamina to be able to keep up this pace, or not even this pace. This is almost kind of an extraordinary pace, but if they can keep up a semblance of this pace through the end of the season. So like you alluded to earlier, let's see if we can do it in September. I don't even care about September. I want to see if we can keep it up through the All-Star break.
Nope, and that's fair. AJ, I appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much.
Later, man.
All right, 937-518-1410, 937-518-1410. That's the number to jump in on the conversation. You can also, everyone has Facebook, everyone has YouTube. If you head over to Facebook or YouTube, you could jump in the chat right there. Again, we're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. So when you chime in the chat, I can interact with you that way. Ron Howard, he weighs in. He says, I think that this is who they are. It took a little time for the transition to occur, of course, but the team seems to be settling in. Will go as far as their health. Absolutely. Look, I think that health has also contributed towards this. The fact that, Tyler Stevenson has still been out, but he's rehabbing right now and could potentially be back by the end of this week. Not interesting to see how the Reds are going to handle that with Stevenson, but they're relatively healthy, and this team doesn't have a lot of depth. They don't have a margin for error. If there's 1 or 2 key contributors that do go down, I don't know if this team is technically set up to be able to handle that. That's one reason that I thought it was a great point earlier today. I wanted to steal it, but I'm not that guy. I wanted to steal this take, but shout out to Charlie Goldsmith. We're going to have that interview coming up here for you shortly. Right away, people started bringing up the fact that you got to move on from Jeimer Candelario. When is enough? And he said, look, at the end of the day, Jeimer Candelario, the problem with the Reds farm system right now is it's all pitching, no hitting. Now, you got to love the pitching, don't get me wrong, but they don't have anyone really in the system right now that's coming up that you can rely on from a bat perspective. We could go the route of, looking around and seeing what's in the mind, from a trade perspective, but we're months away from that even being an option. So as we sit here right now, it's like Jeimer Candelario is one of those, you just kind of have to hope that he figures it out at some point. He went through a bad stretch last year, and then all of a sudden the light flipped on, and then he was great the rest of the season. The problem is this seems like more than just a drought. This is a months-long struggle that he has been on at the end of the day. So it is what it is. Roger, what up, Roger? Roger says the Reds are 5 of the 12 on the way to a 12-game win streak right now. We're looking for that 12-game win streak. Chad Kinser, what up, Chad? Chad says, with the way things have been in the past few years, I'd be happy to at least see a strong playoff push. And by the way, I am not downing anybody that says, well, do they need to do this in September? You are not wrong. They need to do this in October. You are not wrong. But I don't, at what point do we get to enjoy the steps that this team is taking? You have to be able to enjoy the good, because if you're willing to buy the bad for being bad, why can't we look at the good and enjoy it for being good? But yeah, I think that at some point, some kind of playoff success has to come with this. Here's where I'm going to be a semi-negative. Here's where I'm going to bring up something to consider. This is a very interesting stretch. 16-13. I'm like, hey, be happy, right? It's not as if the Reds haven't been here before. You're only 3 games above 500, but you are a game back of the Cubs for the leader in the division. You're holding down a final wild card spot right now. So you're still pacing with the teams that you should be. I think that to be honest with you, 16-13, if you go back to those 3 straight games where the Reds didn't score a run and they held their opponent to 1 run, you probably should have taken 2 of those 3. Taken all 3, but I don't want to be greedy here. But I mean, like, those are 3 just freak games that's not going to happen again. Those were some wins left on the board. If you can go back to opening day, you know that Terry Francona would love to go back to opening day and not throw out Ian Jabot to close the game out. That's one that was basically just handed to the Giants, right? I think we could all agree there. I mean, there's 2 or 3 games that have been left on the table. I think we can all agree as far as that's concerned that, and you could say that every season, but right now at 16-13, this team could easily be 18-11 right now and would be one of the best records in all of baseball. And it would be a much different conversation. That 3-game stretch has just been a debilitating mental marker for this season. You got all the fans can't seem to get past that stretch because it's also been a blemish on the record at this point. But they're 16-13. They easily could be 18-11, 19-10. I mean, they're right there. They are right there. Top 5 hitting team in baseball, top 5 in pitching. Cy Young candidate, MVP candidate, Hall of Fame manager. What else could you ask for? What more do you need to see before you start to buy in to this team being for real? What do you need to see for them to buy into them being for real? 937-518-1410. Now, I bring this up because the Reds were 16-13. It is April 29th, 2025. An exact year ago today, April 29th, 2024, the Cincinnati Reds held the exact same record. Now, what did the Reds do from there? The Reds are 16-13, riding a 5-game win streak right now, looking to keep that momentum going against their hated rival, the Cardinals, tonight, weather permitting, of course. But a year ago, at 16-13, the Reds lost their very next game, and they would go on to lose 11 of their next 12, and they spent the remainder of the months trying to dig themselves out of that hole. The Reds were right here technically at this point a season ago, 16-13, but they weren't a good pitching team. They were not hitting the ball well or scoring at the pace of which they are now. I think this is a much different scenario, a much different team, a much better manager, much deeper pitching staff. I think this Reds team is pretty damn good. And I think that this team needs to start to get that praise and that love and that feel as well. But they have to continue to take care of business. I mean, they're playing bad teams, but they're making bad teams look bad. The Rockies are they're on pace to be a historically bad team. The Reds made them look historically bad over this last 3 games. You went to Colorado and swept the Rockies. Oh, well, the Rockies are bad, and the Reds beat them. Yeah, but they only beat the Rockies. Yeah, and if they lost to them, you would bury them for losing to them, and then you beat them, and then you discredit the win, but you would give them all the credit for the loss. You would give them all the credit in the world for losing to the Rockies, but you give them no credit for when they sweep the Rockies. Can't have it both ways, people. They have the series with the Cardinals. They're in the midst of a 4-game series right now that this will go into May. They'll wrap it up on May 1st, coming up this Thursday with Hunter Green on the mound. And then they'll have 3 with the Nationals coming up this weekend. And then they got to play Atlanta on the road. And Atlanta's playing much better. You look at their record below 500. They seem to have figured some stuff out. The Braves, that's going to be a nice little test. So when I say, okay, what do I need to see to truly buy into this team? I'm buying in now. I think this pitching is legit. I think that this team can hit up and down this lineup. Now, can they hit for this average? I don't know if they could sustain that. But I think that series with the Braves coming up next week, I think that's going to be a good test. A week from today, they'll get things rolling. Or I should say a week from yesterday, they'll get things rolling. Game 1 against the Atlanta Braves, a 4-game series. You also got the White Sox around the corner. You got Cleveland coming up. You got Pittsburgh again. There's a lot of winnable series coming up for the Reds. But I think that the Braves, I think you guys need to see them do this against a good opponent. And I think that's fair. However, they have taken it to the Giants this year. I mean, if we sit here right now, let me go to I need to pull this up too. Where are the Giants right now as far as the standings are concerned? I mean, you look at the Giants. I mean, they're sitting atop the West. They're 19-10. 6 of their 10 losses, all right, have come against the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds, the Giants are the best team that they've played. They dropped the opening season series against them, but then they went on the road and took 2 or 3 from San Francisco there. So they've done a pretty good job as far as I'm concerned against a team that's leading a division that is the best division in baseball. When you got the Giants and the Dodgers and the Padres, the Diamondbacks are 15-13. They'd be right in the mix for the NL Central right now. That's the fourth best team in that division. That's how deep that division is as far as that goes. But all right, it's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. What up, Gary? Gary says completely different approach thanks to an MLB caliber manager. Players never respected David Bell, nor should they have. He never earned it. Francona, on the other hand, has a proven track record. Old school sure beats the analytical approach. Whatever is leading to this 16-13 start, 5-game win streak, top 5 hitting team in baseball, top 5 pitching team in baseball, whatever it is, whatever buttons have been pushed, it's either an old school Hall of Fame approach or it's another year of these younger players being a little bit more experienced and it all starting to come together, a perfect blend and balance of veteran players that the Reds added in the offseason. Some of you want to say it was cheaply done. It doesn't matter how much you spent on it as long as you're getting the production at this point. Gary, I'm with you. I'm more Team Francona than I was Bell. But there's a lot of moving pieces to this. And a lot of guys deserve some respect for it and credit for it. I think Nick Krall deserves a lot of credit. He got buried this offseason for not being aggressive, even by me. I wasn't that jacked about what they did in the offseason, but man, they're not winning right now because of what they had on the roster. They're winning right now because of what they added to it. They're winning right now because they went and got Austin Hayes, a former all-star outfielder. They're winning right now because they went and got a Gavin Lux. They're winning right now because they went and got Brady Singer, Jose Trevino. They're winning right now because of all of those made 4. You take those 4 pieces off the board because you guys said, well, the Reds did nothing this offseason. If they truly did nothing, this team would be battling the Rockies for one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. The White Sox, the Rockies, and the Reds would be the 3 worst teams in baseball, along with the Marlins. The Reds would be swimming with those 3 teams at the bottom of Major League Baseball if the Reds did not add the nobodies that we all proclaim them to be in Austin Hayes, Gavin Lux, Jose Trevino, and Brady Singer. Kudos to Nick Krall. Kudos to the front office for the decisions that they made in the offseason. 1 month in, it looks like they were the right decisions. 1 month in, still a lot of season to go. And I know you guys want to say, well, I'll be more impressed if they're still doing this in September and October. So will I. But as of right now, all of us who are alive on April 29th, 2025, let's just enjoy what they've done up to this point. We've got a month of the season in the books. And with the way it started, I don't think many of us expected them to be where they're at right here, right now. All right, the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. 937-518-1410. The Reds have won 5 straight, a game out of the division lead. They are sitting in the final wild card spot as we sit here right now. Top 5 hitting team in baseball, top 5 pitching team in baseball, Cy Young candidate in Hunter Green, MVP candidate in Ellie De La Cruz, Hall of Fame manager in Terry Francona. What is not to love about this team? Are you buying in? We'll be asking this question throughout the show. We're going to transition to the NFL coming up here shortly as well, but a lot more to get into. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. More next.
for more information.
The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Justin Kinner back with you here. It is 3:41, 3:42 now to be exact, here in the Miami Valley. The Justin Kinner Show, presented by our friends over at Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Happy Tuesday, everybody. We spent a lot of time on the NFL yesterday. Obviously, coming out of the NFL draft, we'll shift focus back towards the NFL coming up here in hour number 2. Also in hour number 2, we had a chance to catch up with Charlie Goldsmith on Off the Bench with my guys over at Chatterbox earlier today. We talked Bengals and we talked Reds. We had one full segment with him to talk Reds, another full to talk Bengals. So we'll have both of those coming up for you here in hour number 2 as well. A lot of interesting takeaways there. The one thing that I will kind of spoil a little bit is the Reds have a tough decision to make, or maybe they don't, when Tyler Stevenson comes off the IL, not the IL, I'm sorry. He's doing a rehab stint right now. And I'm very curious to see what the Reds are going to do when it comes to how they're going to handle their catcher room at this point. You know, last year there was a stretch where the Reds had 3 catchers on the roster, you know, and that didn't work out, you know, too well as far as that's concerned. But the difference is right now, I think that the Reds could do a much better job of utilizing the DH and trying to stretch out an Austin Wynns, you know, Jose Trevino, and obviously, you know, a Tyler Stevenson catcher room and get those guys as many at-bats as possible. Because the bottom line is what I don't want to see the Reds do is become complacent. I don't want the Reds to become complacent at this point, because right now, I remember a quote vividly when the Reds got a win. I forgot which win it was, but it was during that stretch where they were losing like 4 straight. Terry Francona had a quote where he said, you know, winning's hard right now. You know, I hope we enjoy that win, because winning's hard for us right now. We're not good right now. And I remember that quote because it's true. And it really started to make me feel like, man, this is going to be a long season. I did not think during that stretch, that second week in April, that we'd be talking about a team that's 3 games above 500, riding a 5-game win streak, a game out of first place in the division, and holding the final wild card spot in the National League. I did not think that we would be here that quickly after how poor of a start that the Cincinnati Bengals, Reds have. Sorry, I'm just used to talking about the Bengals and slow starts, slip of the tongue there. But you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is at this point. I'm happy that the Reds are where they are at. But what I don't want to have happen is them get complacent, because, man, they are crushing the baseball right now. You know, we've spent a lot of time talking about how good this team has been collectively. You know, hitting 254 as a team, that's 6th best in Major League Baseball. They've scored over 150-plus runs, 153 on the season. Only 2 teams have scored more runs than the Reds in 2025 thus far, 1 month in, and that's the Chicago Cubs and the New York Yankees. You know, and what I don't want to see is them get complacent. And I talked to Charlie Goldsmith earlier today about this. You know, Tyler Stevenson still going to be rehabbing for the time being. This was an update given to Charlie Goldsmith from Terry Francona this week. That right now, when Tyler Stevenson comes back, and it could be very, very soon, Tyler Stevenson is going to be the primary catcher. Tyler Stevenson is going to be the primary catcher. And I'm here to tell you, I know we talked about this last week when there was rumblings of Tyler Stevenson's beginning his rehab stint, but now that we're getting close to the time where he could potentially be called back up to the Reds, I'm a little concerned. Charlie Goldsmith said today on the show, you'll hear it in the interview coming up later on, that when Tyler Stevenson comes back, he's immediately going to go back to being the everyday catcher. I don't know if I'm a big fan of that right now. I'm a big fan of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I don't really want to see this team kind of mess with what has been working up until this point. You could say 16-13. They're only 3 games above 500. They're still pacing with some of the top teams in baseball. Yes, there's still room for improvement here, but what has worked is Jose Trevino, who's hitting .323 on the season, an on-base percentage of .889 at this point. I'm not messing with Jose Trevino. I want him to have as many at-bats as possible. I want to see that candle has officially been blown out before I put out the flame to light a new candle, if that makes sense at all. Ironically enough, by the way, I don't know about you guys. My wife gets really mad at me. We'll have like a candle that we're burning, and then I get bored with it, and I'll go light a brand new one that drives her nuts. Like, she wants that whole candle to be burned to the very bottom, and it drives me nuts. I don't want to burn fall candles in the spring. I don't want the Christmas smelling candles into the summer, but she wants to burn those candles all the way. So sorry for the candle analogy. Just fresh off an argument that I lost recently regarding candles. So anyways, focus, my ADD. It's the end of the day. It is what it is. But at the end of the day right now, when you look at right now, Jose Trevino hitting 323 on the season, I'm not a big fan of taking at bats away from him. I'm not a big fan of lessening his role. And a lot of you are saying, well, Justin, I'm not a big fan of lessening the role of Tyler Stevenson. Let's be clear. When Jose Trevino hits like this, and ready for my hot take? You guys ready for this one? Don't run the car off the road. You guys ready? When Jose Trevino hits like this, he is a better catcher than Tyler Stevenson, and I don't care who disagrees. The whole reason that Jose Trevino was brought in to be the backup catcher was because of how good of a defensive catcher he is. He's a better defensive catcher than Tyler Stevenson. Tyler Stevenson was just a better hitter than Jose Trevino. But Tyler Stevenson, as a better hitter than Jose Trevino, has not even. Yes, Tyler Stevenson's a better hitter than Jose Trevino, but Tyler Stevenson at his best is still not hitting, has never hit as good as what we're watching from Jose Trevino at this point. Jose Trevino doing what he's doing now offensively and defensively, he's a better catcher, and you don't want to hear that. Now, let me rephrase this. The better catcher is Tyler Stevenson, but who's playing better right now is Jose Trevino, and if you want to win games and you want to keep respect to the fan base and the clubhouse, you got to do what's best for the team and not what's best for an individual. Charlie Goldsmith earlier today said Tyler Stevenson, he views himself as a catcher, and he is going to be a catcher. I don't really care what he views himself as. Okay? I don't care what he views himself as. I remember this debate about Tyler Stevenson a year, 2 years ago when he had that stint where he had 3 different stints on the IL in one season, all of those stints coming from collisions at home plate. And there was the talk of, okay, well, Joey Votto, as his career starts to wind down, it could be a perfect replacement for Votto by moving Tyler Stevenson to first base. It's a safer position. It's not a physical position. You need Tyler Stevenson in the lineup. And Tyler Stevenson was adamant that there was no way in hell he was going to move positions, even though, let's just say that truly was the problem. If what was best for the team was to move to first base, good to know that team captain was not willing to do what was best for the team. To me, Tyler Stevenson, if winning matters, he needs to do what's best for the team. If Francona approaches him with the potential of, hey, we're going to have you play a little bit of first base and DHing a lot for the time being until further notice, until we see Trevino come crashing back down to earth, I'm not messing with that. Austin Wynns has been fantastic as well. And if you could have Tyler Stevenson, who's capable of playing first and being your everyday DH at times, I am fine with that. I do not want to see at-bats taken away from Trevino. Am I wrong in that? I don't think it was that hot of a take to say that when Jose Trevino is hitting the baseball the way he is right now, 889 on base percentage, hitting 324 on the season, and he has just been a great contributor. I mean, the one thing I do love about Terry Francona, what he's done with them, is that no matter Trevino has been the hottest, most consistent hitter from the beginning of the season to now, he has not budged on the usage of him in the lineup. He has been that constant in the bottom third of the order. I love that Francona has looked at that, rather than saying, hey, you know what? He's hitting well right now. He's hitting better than anybody else, basically on a more consistent basis. I'm going to move him to the top half of the order. There's been times where I've been calling for that. I wish that they would move him, but I do like the approach of Francona saying, hey, no matter how good of a hitter he becomes right now, I need that steady force in the bottom. And I do appreciate that as far as that goes. But I do see a problem forming. I really hope that it's not one that creates not a distraction. That sounds silly, but I hope it doesn't mess with the rhythm and the flow of this team right now, because, this team has a good rhythm and flow. By the way, we will not see Jose Trevino in the lineup tonight in game 2 against the Cardinals. We're going to see Austin Wynns. Austin Wynns has been hitting the snot out of the ball as well. I mean, he hits for power. He hits for way above average. He's a perfect backup catcher as well. The Reds have some depth as far as that's concerned. And if you could find a way to continue to give at-bats to all 3 of these guys, that's a good thing. But it's going to be a lot more difficult to do when you do have a guy that is capable of playing first base, not willing to play first base, I do believe that that's going to be a problem if it does pop up in that situation. All right, we'll open up the phone lines. 937, let me make sure those are unlocked. There we go. 937-518-1410. When Tyler Stevenson comes back with how dominant Jose Trevino has been this season, do you take away Jose Trevino as the catcher and move him to the backup again? Or do you want to see them ride this out? Do you want to see them ride this out with Trevino and say, hey, as long as you're hitting this way along with the way you play defense, what's the point of less? Like, you're going to get worse defensively and worse offensively from the production standpoint at the catcher position if you do force Stevenson back into that role. It sounds ridiculous because Stevenson was a player coming in that, man, if they didn't have him, it was going to be a concern and be a problem. And now the problem is figuring out how you keep all of these guys who have been swinging a hot bat in this lineup. Now, does this team feel as desperate offensively to find a way to force it? I can understand that argument as well. Fifth best hitting team in baseball at this point. It's not like they have to force this by any means, but at the same time, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. All right, so the Cincinnati Reds, game 2 tonight with the Cardinals. You can catch that right here on 1410 ESPN Radio, by the way. They'll wrap up that series on Thursday with Hunter Green on the mound, and that'll be 12:40. That's a 12:40 first pitch coming up on Thursday, and then the Reds immediately turn their attention towards the Washington Nationals, another opponent under 500, coming up at GABP this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They have 4 on the road at Atlanta, 3 at Houston next week, and then they'll return home on the 13th. They'll have 3 with the White Sox, 3 with the Guardians. Usually it's that 2-game series, but they have 3 with the Guardians coming up, 3 at Pittsburgh, and then the series that I have circled. I mean, the Cubs, we don't like the Cubs, right? We hate the Cubs as Reds fans. Cubs fans hate the Reds, or they look down upon the Reds. But that Reds-Cubs series coming up just under a month from now, May 23rd, is the start of the Reds-Cubs series. That's a huge one. That is a huge series, and I hope that both teams are still playing at the level of which they are now, because that's going to have a lot of playoff implications, division implications when it's all said and done. The fact that the Reds are going to go a month and a half, just over a month and a half, without even coming across the Cubs until that point is pretty impressive. But you're going to play the Cubs for 3 at Great American Ballpark on the 23rd, 24th, 25th, and then you'll head to Wrigley on the 30th, 31st, and June 1st. And then you got Milwaukee at home right after that. There's a lot of important stretches of baseball coming up for the Reds. And if this is the team that they are, that we've seen up to this point on the 29th, I think it's going to be a fun summer. It's been an interesting April. I think it's now time to start having some fun with this team. As I said earlier, Jamir Candelario has been horrible. And you guys say he's horrible and they need to demote him. How come you don't say, well, let me see what he's like in September before I rush to judgment? You don't do that when the player is playing bad or the team is playing bad. But when the team is playing well and a player is playing well, it's like you guys you'll give them all the blame if they struggle, but no credit for if they play well. I don't understand that mindset. A lot of you are doing I need to see this later in the season. If they're doing this post All-Star break, I'll buy in. But you've already bought into the fact that Candelario stinks 1 month in, but you won't buy into the Reds who are playing very good baseball 1 month in. Why is that? All right. NFL draft talk again, more fallout there. A lot, obviously there's going to be a ton to discuss when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. One of my favorite pickups for the Cincinnati Bengals in the draft was who they were able to get. Obviously, the fact that they were able to, what they would do in the undrafted free agent department. I love who they were able to get there. Of course, McLaughlin, obviously out of Ohio State. But one of my favorite gets that the Bengals were able to get was a running back that I actually had circled that I was hoping that the Browns would have a chance to get. Now, they killed it. They got Sampson, obviously, from Tennessee, and Quinshon Judkins, so all is right in Cleveland. But one of the backs I did have that I really liked was who the Bengals ended up getting in the 6th round, their final pick of the weekend, in Taj Brooks, the running back out of Texas Tech. Lots made about the Bengals and their ability to improve that running backs room. But what is the purpose of improving the running backs room if you're not going to utilize your running backs? We'll get to all of that in hour number 2, as well as Shedeur Sanders against Joe Flacco. Who should be starting for the Browns in week 1? Does the fact that you drafted Shedeur so late in the draft, does that mean you don't have to start him right away, that you ease him into his Browns career? Or is the fact that, hey, this is a first-round talent taken in the 5th round, and we got to sink or swim for the egomaniac that is Shedeur Sanders? Joe Flacco against Shedeur. Who's going to be the Browns' week 1 starter? At least how do we envision that playing out as we sit here in late April? It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Hour number 2 coming up next.
If you need new roofing, siding or gutters, skylights or patio enclosure,
Coming to you live from the Superbook Sports Studios in Kettering. You're listening to Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
You want hot takes? No, I'm not going to apologize to Ryan Day. Everything we said about Ryan Day up into the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, here we go. Hour number 2, the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. What we got? 4:03 here in the Miami Valley. Happy Tuesday, everybody. A lot more to get into. Now, I did just spend an entire hour trying to be as positive and upbeat about the Cincinnati Reds as I could possibly be. And then in typical Reds fashion, there's always just that little bad news that always has to trickle in. I don't know if it's horrible news, but it's not good news. We know how the luck of the Reds and how things go. Austin Hayes has just been absolutely phenomenal. The Reds picked him up this offseason, of course, last year. He was a former All-Star for the Orioles and then had a kidney infection last year, and all of his production basically just disappeared. The Orioles just kind of let him go. The Reds picked him up for cheap. He's returned to his All-Star form. Austin Hayes hitting 19 of 49 on the season, 388, 5 home runs, 13 RBIs in the 13 games that he has played in. But he's scratched from the lineup tonight, according to according to Joe Daneman in Cincinnati Reds media, as Terry Francona has updated the media that Austin Hayes will be out of tonight's lineup as he is dealing with what they call a tender hamstring. He did have an MRI. They do not have the results back yet. So there you go. Another update, whether you want to believe this or not, but Jeimer Candelario, again, all of this coming out within the last 5 minutes. Jeimer Candelario, I mean, it's been hitting like $160. I mean, it's just been putrid how bad it's been. And there was a meeting recently with Francona and Candelario to address what his role was going to be moving forward. Obviously not in the lineup tonight either, but he is having an MRI done. I guess for the past month, Jeimer Candelario has been battling a back issue. And for me, I agree. I mean, the back issue that I've been most concerned with Candelario was the fact that they brought him back. I think that was kind of the big problem that I had with Candelario. But in all seriousness, a back problem. He's been experiencing severe back pain throughout the month of April, and they are going to do an MRI. I don't know if I buy into that or not. A lot of times when players struggle like this, and you want to be respectful of a veteran like Jeimer Candelario, you don't just outright demote him or outright cut him or outright option him to AAA. A lot of times you'll get some of these wink, wink, nudge, nudge phantom injuries to kind of send them out with a little grace, right? I don't know what the role of Candelario is going to be moving forward. I will say this. I know this sounds mean, but I hope his back is hurt. And I know that sounds mean, but at least that would justify what we've watched from him. The Reds paid him $15 million a year to hit the ball out of the ballpark and to hit for average. There's no way this guy just forgot how to hit. Like, I do hope that this back injury is what has led to the problems. Now, I know that sounds cold-hearted. I promise you. What I mean by that is at least there's a reason for why he's playing poorly, and it's not just the fact that he just forgot how to swing a bat. So I hope that whatever the issue is, that they get that resolved and that Candelario does have a lot, some pop left in that bat. Because it is only April. It's about to be May. There's still all of May, June, July, and August, and September left. There's 4 or 5 months left of this season, hopefully an extra month. But yes, that's the bad news I have for you right there. Terry Francona updating Reds media that Austin Hayes will be kept out of the lineup tonight, game 2 against the Cardinals, due to having an MRI on what they are calling a tender hamstring. Don't know what to make of that, but again, the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. Talked about the Reds' success as a team hitting in that first half of the show, and man, oh man. We'll get back into some more Reds coming up here shortly with Charlie Goldsmith. We'll have that conversation with you here around the corner. Do want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors. We really appreciate our partners over at Titan Graphics. Titan Graphics is the Miami Valley's choice for custom screen printing, embroidery, laser engraving, and promotional products. Place your order today with Titan Graphics, titangraphics.com. All of our giveaways that we do when we're out on the road, whether, our live shows, our t-shirts, the golf balls, the koozies, our signage, our apparel, all of that stuff comes from our friends over at Titan Graphics, and the quick turnaround. They're fantastic to work with. And if you're working in HR, or you're a business manager, or you're running a sports team, you're a coach or whatever, and you're needing quick work, quick turnaround, call Titan Graphics. They'll take care of you. They take care of us here at 1410 ESPN Radio. Again, we're really happy with them, and we love working with them. Titan Graphics, again, the Miami Valley's choice for custom screen printing, embroidery, laser engraving, and promotional products. Place your order today at titangraphics.com. All right, so some other news today when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's see. Let me pull up my notes because my notes all kind of froze here. So my apologies as I'm kind of filibustering here to kind of buy time. No, when it comes to the Bengals, obviously we talked a lot about them when it came to the draft. But now that the draft has come and gone, I was not a fan of what the Bengals did in free agency. I don't think they did a damn thing. I don't think they did anything that was worth a damn, if you will. I thought they had an average draft. I don't think that they nailed it. I thought there was a lot of pressure on the Bengals to nail the draft because of how little effort they put into free agency. I feel like they put so much time and emotional bandwidth into getting the deals done with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, that once those deals were done, it was like, all right, let's just focus on the draft now. And I was okay with the light usage of free agency if it seemed like they had more of a plan with the draft. And I don't think that plan was either, if that was the plan, it wasn't a good one, or the plan didn't fall into place the way they had anticipated. I thought it was an beyond underwhelming free agent period, and it was a very underwhelming draft. Now, what they plan on doing afterwards to make up for an underwhelming draft and free agency, that's going to be the key. Something we will talk about with Charlie Goldsmith coming up. Jacob did ask him about the possibility of a Justin Simmons. Justin Simmons has been interested in the Bengals in the past. He didn't shoot it down. His answer, very interesting. We'll have that for you coming up here around the corner. But some Bengals news from earlier today. The Bengals are exercising the fifth-year option on defensive back Dax Hill, according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. So obviously Dax Hill was drafted as a safety, made the switch to corner last season before suffering that torn ACL back in week 5. I think that the Bengals see that there's something there. That there's something that they could work with, and I think that's why they're exercising this fifth-year option. So we'll see what happens there. Ro, what up, Ro? Ro on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page messages in. He says, what's up? I think we should enjoy what the Reds are doing now since it is such a long season. Absolutely. If the team was 13-16, we'd be miserable and angry for a team finishing under 500 the first month in. So the fact that they're going to finish above 500 a month in, I think we need to praise that to be happy with it. But talking about the Bengals now too, Eric Lenski. What up, Eric? Eric wants to go back to the Reds as well. He goes, is it just me, or does it seem like the Reds have had that they have had many players over the last few years with hamstring issues? Yeah, I mean, look, think about this. We live in that silo where baseball is regional. I think we've admitted that baseball is a little regional. I don't know why. I mean, I love baseball. If the Braves are on, or if any teams are on, I mean, I'll watch baseball, but I don't go seek out Yankees games, Dodger games, what have you. I watch the Reds, and that's about it. I mean, that's about, I shouldn't say that's about it. That's not true. I mean, I watch a lot of Major League Baseball, but I don't seek out Major League Baseball games. I give all my attention towards the Reds, right? So, and I think a lot of fans are that way. I don't think a lot of fans are, all right, I'm a Reds fan, but I'm going to watch every Guardians game, and I'm going to watch every Dodger game, and I'm going to make sure I catch as many Phillies and Braves games as I can, and we're going to watch a lot of NL Central opponents. I don't think people do that either. I think that because you play 162 games, because you go home every night from work and you watch the Reds every single night, it just feels like, all right, well, that I only have time to give one team my full devoted attention over a long season that they play pretty much every day. So what happens is we don't live in a silo, or the silo that we live in is all Reds. When the Reds have a couple injuries, we think, why does this always happen to our team? Why is the hamstring always an issue with our team? Why, you know what I mean? Like, I think that we live in a silo where we think, why is it always us? Why is it always our team? I have a hard time believing that. I mean, you look at the Dodgers right now, they are constantly battling injuries. I mean, they're 19-10. The Dodgers are pretty damn good, and they're not even 100%. The Dodgers have arguably the best rotation in the history of baseball, And I don't even know when we're going to be able to see it fully put together because of how banged up it is. I wonder if Dodger fans are saying we spend all this money on this roster, but it seems like we're always hurt. I think Dodger fans say that. I've seen it on social media, and I'm laughing. I'm like, oh, poor Dodger fans. Oh, your superstar all-star lineup has a few pieces out. Aw. Like, so I think that because baseball's so regional, we all live in our team silos. I think it just feels like, man, we're snake bitten more than other teams. I don't think that's the case. I think where we get exposed, we being the Reds, I think where our team, the Reds, gets exposed the most is the lack of depth. You know, the Dodgers can lose a Mookie Betts for an extended period of time. They could be without Shohei Ohtani pitching for a season and a half. They're 19-10. They won a World Series last year. Like they're able to battle through being without some of their best players because of all the depth and the money. The Reds don't have a lot of money, and they sure as hell don't have a lot of depth. So this hamstring issue, although it appears like it's just a light issue, it seems much bigger because you don't have Austin Hayes. Who do you have? There's not a lot of depth that this team has at this point. Candelario has a back issue. Austin Hayes potentially has a hamstring issue. But yeah, Eric, not saying you're wrong. I do that all the time. I'm like, man, why are the Reds always hurt? I think every team's always hurt. I think if you go look, I don't think you could go find me a team. Maybe you will. Maybe you will go find one. I don't know if you could find me a team right now that doesn't have a key contributor or two who are battling an ailment, who are have missed some time already, missing time now. I think it happens to all of them. It just seems like, man, when things start rolling for the Reds, they always hit a roadblock, and this could potentially be one of them. But luckily, you're getting contributions up and down that lineup right now. You're getting Elly De La Cruz, who's in the midst of a 12-game hit streak. Obviously, Noelvi Marte appears to have emerged as a legitimate star for this team. Charlie Goldsmith talked about some of the hitting approaches that Noelvi Marte has had, and some of the coaches and personnel that have approached Noelvi Marte about making some changes, with the way he even holds the bat. And Charlie has some really cool stories that we'll air for you coming up here shortly as well. But yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals, of course, the big news for them today, they do pick up the 5th-year option on Dax Hill. They moved him to cornerback last year, originally drafted as a safety. Tough to make that safety to cornerback switch, of course. He got injured in week 5, missed the remainder of the season. They do pick up the 5th-year option. It will be like, I like that they're picking up the 5th-year option. I think that they like there's something there with Dax Hill. There is some clay to be molded when it comes to him. And I think that because you're getting a new defensive coordinator now, Golden, I think he looks at this as an opportunity to say, hey, don't move on from him yet. I want to work with him. I question just how much. So it's a twofold question here when it comes to the Bengals defense. How much better do they improve defensively this offseason? First question. The second question I have for you Bengals fans is, how much better do they have to be for the Bengals to accomplish their goal of winning a Super Bowl? They were one of the worst defenses in the NFL last year. Now, people started to buy into the fact that they played better defense the final month. But you look at the quarterbacks that they faced, you look at the offenses that they faced, they didn't face any quarterback that was striking fear in your secondary. Their secondary was never really challenged. You were playing a lot of inept offensive units in the final month of the season. That's one reason why the Bengals were able to go on that win streak that they did. I mean, as good as Denver is, Denver was not an offensive juggernaut by any means. So it's just kind of one of those things. What did they improve, or did they just face lesser offenses down the stretch? Did the guys that they just took in the draft, are they truly going to be difference makers? Are they down the road difference makers? Are they being brought in to make an immediate impact now? I mean, again, people say, well, they got a lot of starters in this draft. Well, someone's got to start. Being a star, I mean, everyone starts at a position. It's just a matter of whether you're good at that position. So, yeah, the Bengals may have got starters in this draft. It doesn't mean that they're good. It just means that they may not have other options to start at some of these key positions. We know that they're weak when it comes to the defensive line. They don't have a pass rush. They're obviously weak when it comes to linebacker. That's one reason that they've put an extra emphasis there. You know, it's still kind of strange to me that Jermaine Pratt has not been moved yet. I do believe he will be moved. I do believe that he has value to this team off the roster. I thought that he had value to the team off the roster because I thought he would be able to kind of get back some kind of draft capital. A team that only had 6 draft picks this year, you needed more picks to be able to fill some of these holes on defense. And I thought going in with only 6 picks was interesting, considering you could have got a haul back for Trey Hendrickson. You could have got at least a pick back in some capacity for, obviously, when you look at Jermaine Pratt there. I don't know. I find the Bengals situation to be interesting. So how much better did the Bengals improve their defense? And how much better do they have to be for the Bengals to win a Super Bowl in 2025? That's the question that I have for you. 937-518-1410. Bengals fans, let's discuss. I'm not hating on your team. It's a legitimate question. The draft was a lot of emphasis on defense. How much better do you think the Bengals improve their defense with this draft? And how much better do the Bengals need to be to win a Super Bowl in 2025? 937-518-1410. Give us a call, 937-518-1410. We'll take your calls and discuss when we come back.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
Our forecast calling for showers and then
At Frickers, our new $10.99 lunch combos bring the flavor fast, like frickin' chicken chunks, a big frickin' BLT, a juicy cheeseburger, or a charbroiled chicken wrap. Pick your favorites and add a side like curlicues, homemade slaw, and top it off with an ice-cold soda, all for $10.99. So why settle for boring? Frickers is where lunch wins. Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., dine in or carry out. Frickers, your neighborhood home for fun, food, sports, and spirits, has it all. Dine in, carry out, or order online at frickers.com.
The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, 426 here in the Miami Valley. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Looks like the sun is out and the weather's back to being beautiful. So it does look like, hopefully, again, I say that here in Kettering. I don't know what the weather is in Cincinnati at this point, but it does sound like this game will get in tonight. The Reds and the Cardinals game 2. Touched on it a little bit ago. Austin Hayes scratched from the lineup tonight. Tender hamstring is what they're calling it. MRI has been done, but no results as far as that update is concerned. We had a conversation with Charlie Goldsmith earlier today. We talked a lot of Reds. We talked a lot of Bengals. We have that coming up for you here around the corner as well. So keep that in mind. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. All right, so the Cincinnati Bengals obviously put a lot of emphasis on defense in the draft, and rightfully so. The bottom line is that this was a team that obviously had need when it came to defense, being able to attack and get to the quarterback, to protect their quarterback. And they needed to improve the run game. I don't know if it was the run game that was like, was it the ingredients that were the problem, or was it the chef that was the problem? It seems like they think that the chef is the problem. That's one reason why they moved on, as far as that's concerned. So who knows how different this Bengals team is truly going to look from a performance standpoint. I think it's going to look pretty damn similar to last year. How much better do they improve themselves defensively? I'm not sure how much they improve themselves defensively this year. How much better do they need to improve themselves to win a Super Bowl? I think drastically. I don't think there's anything about this Bengals defense that strikes fear in opposing quarterbacks and opposing offensive coordinators. No one respects the Bengals defense. We could sit here and say, well, they don't, if the Bengals, who won 9 games last year, who had a chance to sneak into the back end of the playoffs, was there a shot? Did the Bills want to play the Cincinnati Bengals? Did the Chiefs want to play the Bengals? I kept hearing Bengals fans say, well, I tell you this much, the Bills, they don't want to play the Bengals. Don't let the Bengals in. There's going to be a lot of teams that don't want to play the Bengals. I'm here to tell you that you could say that Patrick Mahomes, he doesn't want to play Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow doesn't impact Patrick Mahomes. The defense impacts Patrick Mahomes. I'm here to tell you that, yes, I do believe Patrick Mahomes, who has beaten the Bengals 3-4 straight times now, I do believe that Patrick Mahomes would have wanted to face the Bengals because he would want to face that Bengals defense. Josh Allen would have torched that Bengals defense last year. Have the Bengals done enough to keep quarterbacks at that end? Have they done enough to strike fear into those quarterbacks? I don't think so. You're bringing back Trey Hendrickson, which that's a must. That's the only person that they actually respect on that defense that they align for. You look at the pieces that they just added in this draft. Shamar Stewart, although he's going to look intimidating as hell out on that field, I don't think he strikes fear into Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson or Shedeur Sanders / Joe Flacco / Dylan Gabriel / Deshaun Watson / I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Oh yeah, Kenny Pickett / whoever. No one is fearing that Bengals defense. And in an offseason where you had $70 million, 6 draft picks, a key player in Trey Hendrickson that was going to have a lot of value for you, either value on the field or value off the team because of the trade value that he would get back, I just feel like the Bengals did not show any ounce of aggressiveness whatsoever. I don't think they signed Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That wasn't aggressive. You had to sign Jamar Chase. T. Higgins was kind of forced upon the Cincinnati Bengals. I almost wonder if the Cincinnati Bengals front office just my theory is the actions of the Bengals never match Duke Tobin's words. Duke Tobin is very aggressive when he approaches the media. Not aggressive towards them. He's respectful towards the media, but he's very aggressive in the plan that he depicts, that he thinks that the Bengals are going to orchestrate. He talks about their aggressiveness. He talked about the money that they had to spend. They talk about the emphasis of knowing that they have to get to the quarterback, but you use your first round pick on a guy that looks like he can get to the quarterback, but can't actually get to the quarterback. Some of the picks that they made, they weren't reaches as in talent wise, but they reached on certain talents based on where they were in the draft. It just didn't make sense. That's why a lot of draft prognosticators out there have given the Bengals like that C range grade in there. I don't think they failed, but they definitely didn't get an A. And for those of you out there say, well, it wasn't a bad draft. The problem with that mindset is you're right. It wasn't a bad draft, but it had to be an elite. It had to be a great draft. The Bengals had a bad draft last year, a bad draft the year before. And you're happy that they had an okay draft this year. The Bengals were not reaching for okay. They were reaching for, we got to go get impact guys right now. You had to go get a lot of starters right now. And for those of you that say, well, the goal was to get starters, and they did. Well, they got starters, but did they get starters? Did they get stars? Did they get contributors? Everyone, you have to start somebody at every position. Everyone has starters. The Bengals needed to get starters in this draft, and they got starters. Well, everybody has to start somebody. It's just a matter of whether you got somebody that's even worth a damn starting to begin with. I get it. People are so enamored with Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase that they are automatically just constantly put on that Super Bowl pedestal. I just don't view the Bengals as that. I don't view the Bengals as being a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I think that they are a legitimate playoff contender. But this team missed the playoffs the last 2 years, and this is basically the same roster. This is, I should say, this is the same. They have the same deficiencies for the third straight year. Some question marks on the offensive line. Not a very good running team. Secondary is torn to hell. Like 3 straight years, you're talking about the same deficiencies with this Bengals team. At what point is enough enough? I am not a fan of what the Bengals did this offseason. I think that they let Joe Burrow down. You could sit there and say, well, how did they let Joe Burrow down? They went and got him Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I completely get that. But I'm also here to tell you, I think Joe Burrow let Joe Burrow down. This is why you don't let players be the GM. I think that the Bengals are going to put up a lot of big offensive numbers this year. My theory, so to go back to this, here's my theory. My theory is Joe Burrow publicly humiliated the front office by basically throwing his weight around. And I think that Duke Tobin in the front office said, okay, Joe Burrow, you want to be GM? You wanted Trey Hendrickson on this roster? He's still here. You wanted Mike Gesicki? We'll give you Mike Gesicki. You want Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? All right, here's their checks. Paid. Have you noticed everything Joe Burrow wanted, he got? The front office is basically, in my theory, looking at Joe Burrow saying, all right, you wanted it. Here you go. You want to be a diva GM, Joe Burrow? By all means. You want it? Here you go. If you truly believe that this is exactly what you need to win a Super Bowl for us, all right, you want it? Here you go. Joe Burrow never asked for improvements on the D-line. Joe Burrow never asked for improvements in the secondary. No, Joe Burrow never asked for improvements really anywhere. Joe Burrow didn't lose football games last year because he didn't have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. He had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But he was more enamored with forcing the front office to bring them back than he was at them truly attacking the deficiencies with the team. My theory is the front office, they gave Joe Burrow everything he wanted this year. And they didn't give him anything else. And my theory is you're going to get to the end of this upcoming season. You're going to get to that 9, 10, maybe 11 win mark, which is not bad, by the way. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You're in the playoffs. But when they fail to win a Super Bowl again, and you're number 6 or 7 in the Joe Burrow era, I mean, these years are starting to pile up now. When Joe Burrow fails to win a Super Bowl again this upcoming season, that's when the front office can look at him and say, and that's when I'm going to look at him and say, because I'm going to be sitting in a room with him, right? Big, bad, tough guy, Justin Kinner over here in Dayton. But this is where I will sit back and look at all of you and say, this is why you don't let your diva players put a GM cap on. Joe Burrow didn't need to tell the front office that they needed to keep Jamar Chase. I think we knew they were going to keep Jamar Chase. You pressured them to keep T. Higgins. I think we all know it wasn't. You may think it makes sense. It doesn't. It financially doesn't make any sense to load that much money into 2 wide receivers when you have so many other deficiencies. I will die on that hill. I do not care. That was a bad decision. But Joe Burrow, he forced them to do it, so he did. They did. But now what Joe Burrow's not allowed to do this upcoming season, and what you guys aren't allowed to do this upcoming season, is you can't blame the defense. You can't blame the lack of improvement in the secondary. You can't blame the lack, their inability to get to the opposing quarterback. You can't blame the Bengals front office for any of it, because Joe Burrow was the general manager this offseason. He started it Super Bowl weekend on media row, or doing the media run, whatever he did. He put all the pressure on the front office. Everything he asked for, he got. He never asked for help on defense. I think he showed a lack of comprehension of what this team truly needed. They needed a defense, and they still didn't get it. They didn't get a defense in free agency. They didn't get a draft. They didn't get, I don't think that they hit any major home runs in the draft. I'm not hating. I legitimately do not think that this team got better. I don't think the Bengals are any better than they were last year. If you go look at their deficiencies from 2 years ago, if you look at their deficiencies last year, if you look at their deficiencies this upcoming season, how can you have the same team 3 years in a row? How can you have the same team 3 years in a row? The same team that is, questionable defensively and got worse over the last 3 years, can't run the football over the last 3 years, can't protect the quarterback over the last 3 years. How do you have those same problems year after year after year? Ron Howard on Facebook, he chimes in. He says, the problem with the Bengals is management. Let the inmates run the asylum. Yes, we've heard that line before. And bottom line is, the Bengals need to make the decisions that are best for the team and not what's best for Joe Burrow. Now, you could say, well, what's best for Joe Burrow is best for the team. Well, you could argue that what was best for Patrick Mahomes would have been to keep Tyreek Hill, but they invested into the tight end. They used all the money that they would have invested into Tyreek Hill, and they invested it into a defense. And I don't know. That's a dynasty. What would have been best for the Buffalo Bills would have been to keep an elite weapon in the pass game for Josh Allen and find a way to get it figured out with Stephon Diggs or replace Stephon Diggs. The Bills did not replace Stephon Diggs. They used the money that they could have used on the wide receiver. They put it into the defense, and guess what? Josh Allen goes out and wins an MVP. The Bills did what was best for the team, not what was best for Josh Allen, but what is best for the team truly is best for Josh Allen. The Bengals did what was best for Joe Burrow this offseason. They didn't do what was best for the team, and that's the problem. And when you look at the teams this offseason that did what was best for the team and not an individual, those are the teams that are going to be the most successful. The Eagles never once make a decision for what's best for Jalen Hurts. The Bills don't make a decision based on what's best for Josh Allen. The Chiefs have never made a decision on what's best for Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, the Ravens, all of these teams have always done what is best for the team, because what's best for the team is what's best for the quarterback. And the Bengals are over here allowing Joe Burrow to call the shots, and I think that's a problem, in my opinion. I'm not a fan of that. All right, it's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits, of course. Agree, disagree, how we feel about the Bengals offseason. We'll continue on with that. Shedeur Sanders against Joe Flacco. Who will be the Browns' starting quarterback, week 1? We'll discuss that as we wrap up the month of April. A lot of time left between now and week 1. But the Browns drafted Shedeur Sanders, and there's a lot of pressure on Shedeur and a lot of pressure on the Browns of how they're going to utilize Shedeur. Week 1 starter for the Browns, Shedeur, Joe Flacco. We'll discuss next.
At Frickers, our new $10.99 lunch combos bring the flavor fat, like frickin' chicken chunks, a big frickin' BLT, a juicy cheeseburger, or a charbroiled chicken wrap. Pick your favorites and add a side like curlicues, homemade slaw, and top it off with an ice-cold soda, all for $10.99. So why settle for boring? Frickers is where lunch wins. Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., dine in or carry out. Frickers, your neighborhood home for fun, food, sports, and spirits, has it all. Dine in, carry out, or order online at frickers.com.
I'm still going.
Policies at selectquote.com/commercials.
The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, and we are back, 4:45 here in the Miami Valley. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. We got Reds baseball coming up here later on tonight. Game 2 between the Reds and the Cardinals. Brady Singer, undefeated on the season, going to be on the mound for your Redlegs as they look to take the first 2 games of this Cardinals series. And if they do that here tonight, that means they would have increased their win streak to 6. And the Reds are looking to keep it going. 16-13 at the 1-month point of this. Of course, they got games today and tomorrow to close out the month of April. They will take a 500 record into the month of May. But the interesting thing is you look at where they're at right now. A year ago at this time, April 29th, 2024, the Reds 16-13 as well. But 16-13 is what the Reds were on April 29th, an exact year ago today. But what ended up happening kind of shaped the unfortunate rest of the season last year, where the Reds would go on to drop 11 of their next 12. Hopefully the Reds don't go on to drop 11 of their next 12 games moving forward. So hopefully the Reds can keep that going tonight. The unfortunate news that came out, no Austin Hayes in the lineup tonight. A tender hamstring is what he's being treated for right now. An MRI has been done. No update, no results have been updated to the media as far as that's concerned. Jeimer Candelario, a bad back, apparently. Apparently he has a bad back. I don't know. I find it very convenient. This guy has obviously the Reds, they're in a tough spot. They really can't do anything with Candelario at this point. He spoke up to the team about a lower back issue he's been dealing with. They're having it looked at, and an IL stint is probably, there's a high probability that's going to be the case. And what happens with these phantom injuries, injuries, is he will then have to go, obviously on these on a rehab stint. And I don't think a rehab stint is that bad of an idea for Jeimer Candelario. Look, the Reds are in a tough spot with him. You don't have a lot of options. You have no options. So there's that, to be direct. They have no options. He has no options left, but the Reds don't have a whole lot of options. $15 million, a lot of money tied into him. You can't just, do you cut him? Charlie Goldsmith, who you're about to hear coming up, in the next hour, would go on to say that, as wild as this sounds, the Reds have no depth in the system. There's not a lot of big time hitters in Louisville. There's not a lot of guys that they're confident that they can come up and provide a little, assurance as far as the hitting is concerned. So we'll see what ends up happening there. So having him, knowing that at any point he could potentially get hot, potentially turn it around, that was one of the points that Charlie made earlier today. Keeping him around is not the end of the world, if that ends up being the case, considering the lack of options that the Reds have here. Nonetheless, Nick Kirby, who hosts Chatterbox Reds, he tweeted this out just a little bit ago, that I'm sure people are making fun of him for making up an injury because he got benched, but the Reds can't legally ask him to go on the IL. The Reds are in a really difficult spot with him. He would make their lives so much easier by going on the IL at this point. So we'll see what ends up happening. That is something to track moving forward, what the Reds do with Jeimer Candelario. How severe is this injury to Austin Hayes? I mentioned a little bit ago, on a positive side, how hot the Reds have been offensively. They are right now, as we discussed, they're a top 5 hitting team in baseball. A top 5 hitting team in baseball, collectively as a unit, hitting 254 in the season. That's 6th in Major League Baseball. They've scored 153 runs. Only 2 other teams in baseball have scored more than the Reds have this season. That's their division rival, the Chicago Cubs, and of course the big bad New York Yankees. Only 2 teams have scored more runs than the Reds. They lead the league and they lead the National League in run differential. They are. When you have a combination of being the 3rd best hitting team or 5th, 6th best hitting team in baseball, along with one of the best rotations and pitching staffs in baseball, that's going to lead to that. The Reds have taken advantage of that. They're 11th in home runs. They've hit the 11th most home runs in baseball. They're doing what they're supposed to. Hopefully this Austin Hayes absence isn't going to be a long one. But this offensive tear that they're on as of late has a lot to do with the emergence of Noelvi Marte, who we talked about earlier. Austin Hayes has been phenomenal, but Gavin Lux has just been lights out this season as well. I mean, it's been pretty fun watching what Gavin Lux has been able to do. He's the National League. I mean, he's leading the National League in average as we sit here 1 month into the season. Elly De La Cruz is riding a 12-game hitting streak. You want to know who's also riding a 12-game hitting streak in that same span? Gavin Lux. Gavin Lux and Elly De La Cruz. I mean, good for them and good for the Reds. And hopefully they keep that momentum going tonight. Hopefully they don't let the news of Austin Hayes start to allow some bad mojo to start flowing into that clubhouse. All right, week 1 of the NFL season. We don't know who the Browns are playing in week 1. We know that they have a lot to figure out between now and week 1 when we get closer to September. We were talking Bengals on Off the Bench earlier today, and one thing you'll also hear me talk to Charlie about is that the Bengals, it's going to be, I need content. I need the Bengals to be noisy and messy. They're going to let me down. Shocker. They're going to let me down this summer. The Bengals are going to have a very quiet offseason. All right. Once, like, the next big thing on the NFL calendar is the schedule reveal. So it's not who you play, it's when you play them that matters the most to me. So we're going to dissect it when the Bengals schedule comes out, and we now know who they play already, but when you play them is key. So when we find out when the Bengals are going to play these teams, we'll dissect it. We'll dive into the month of September and talk about the importance of the Bengals finally getting out to a hot start so they're not digging themselves out of a hole for an entire season like they've done for years now. But after that, we're not going to be talking about T. Higgins' contract extension. We're not going to be talking about Jamar Chase and, the market resetting itself. No Jamar Chase contract talk, no T. Higgins contract talk, no Joe Burrow contract talk. There's really no one that's up for any major contracts at this point. I refuse to look at Trey Hendrickson as a distraction at this point just because we're kind of all numb to it. I don't see that becoming a problem at all. There will be nothing to talk about when it comes to the Bengals, hopefully, for you guys. If there's anything to talk about with this Bengals team over the next couple of months, it's a bad thing. That means some drama has kind of come forth a bit. I don't anticipate that to be the case. The Browns, on the other hand, a completely different story. They've created their own mess. They created their own mess when they got Deshaun Watson. They created their own mess when it appeared as if they didn't have a plan. I thought they were trying to clean up some of the mess by trading back in the draft to acquire another first-round draft pick for next year. They're going to have 2 first-round picks next year in a very quarterback-friendly draft class. You acquired the pick from a team that very well could finish in the bottom 15, which would mean top 15 draft pick. The Browns could easily be picking top 15 from where they finish next season as well. The Browns are going to have the draft capital and the manpower to be able to package something to go get the quarterback that they want. So they end up taking Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, which pissed me off because I was like, do not take a quarterback in this draft. You passed on Shedeur in the 1st round. You passed on Travis Hunter in the 1st round to acquire an additional draft pick. Why did you do that? You acquired an additional draft pick because of the fact that you were going to go all out to try and get a quarterback in next year's draft. Well, if that's the case, then why did you create another headache? Why did you create a headache in regards to forcing not just 1, but 2 quarterbacks into the Browns system this upcoming season? Dylan Gabriel was a reach. I did not like it. I was not a fan of their decision to go get Dylan Gabriel. And then you go a couple rounds later, and then you get Shedeur Sanders. So, and this is the same offseason that a week before you signed Joe Flacco, which I'm a big Joe Flacco fan. And then, of course, you also have Kenny Pickett. I would move on from Kenny Pickett. I don't think the Browns need Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett does not serve the Browns. He doesn't bring them anything to the table. Even if Kenny Pickett has like a Sam Darnold type, turnaround type season, that's not doing the Browns any favors. We watched Sam Darnold throw. He had a Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow type of season last year, and the Vikings still just let him walk out the door. Clearly, as great as he was, the Vikings didn't value it. They just let him go. They didn't, they looked at what he did, but they didn't truly believe that, okay, that's franchise quarterback stuff. They let it go. Even if Kenny Pickett has a great year for Cleveland, he's not the quarterback of the future. Let it go. Don't even let it get that far. At this point, Joe Flacco's your week 1 starter. Shedeur and Dylan Gabriel are battling it out for QB2. If Shedeur Sanders is who everyone said he was supposed to be in round 1, everyone thinks that the league was out to get him, to teach him a lesson, this, that, and the other. Heaven forbid we just call it what it is and just say exactly that word that it is. It's called accountability. You're being held accountable. You're being held accountable for being a jerk throughout this entire process. You're being held accountable for thinking that you're bigger than the team, bigger than the NFL, bigger than the Shield. I mean, Shedeur and Dion are two delusional human beings. I can't believe we're going to sit here and chalk it up to, oh my gosh, they're just confident, arrogant people. That's just how they, no, that's not a good thing. Oh, Dion's Dion. Well, Dion being Dion put his son in this situation to begin with. He brought his son to believe as if he walks on water and that he doesn't have to be held accountable for anything. Laughing at teams who asked him to, basically showing him film of some of the mistakes he made in college and not being happy about being shown some of the film of the mistakes he made in college and what went wrong. He thought he was too big to answer that. He thought he was too big to live in that moment. Shedeur Sanders has a chance here to rebound. So if he truly is, so he dropped because of that. Did he drop because of talent? No. The Browns got a quarterback that had a first round / second round grade in the 5th round of the draft. That's a big win for Cleveland if he pans out. Because you got two very, very, very good running backs. You got one of the best tight ends in this draft class. You got two of the best defensive players. You obviously, I love who they got with the number 5 pick, the pass rusher from Michigan. And then you got a first-round linebacker with your first pick in the 2nd round. The Browns killed this draft. Who will be the starter for the Browns in week 1? Joe Flacco or Shedeur? I think at this point, you went and you got an additional draft pick. I love Joe Flacco. I believe if Joe Flacco is the quarterback in week 1, that means Kevin Stefanski and this Browns team truly feels like they have something special on defense and offense and that they can go make some noise. Can Cleveland win 8, 9, 10 games? Absolutely. I think they're in that 8-9 win range. I think they're going to miss the playoffs by a game, maybe 2. But I also know that if Shedeur does hit and he's that CJ Stroud, he's that, you look at Jaden Daniels, what he did with Washington. I mean, Houston was that worst to first turnaround when they got their star quarterback in the draft. We saw what Washington did, worst to first when they got their star quarterback in the draft. Cleveland has the quarterback that is most suited to potentially do that out of this draft class. Could that be the case? I don't know. But it's all going to be up to what the defense does. I'll be surprised if Shedeur is the starter in week 1, because I think this team's good enough to compete with Joe Flacco right off the bat. But at the same time, you did trade for 2. You moved back in the draft to acquire another first-round pick next year to go get a quarterback. And the only way to know what you truly have in Shedeur is to throw him to the wolves. I want Joe Flacco to be the starter to start because I've seen the success that this offense has had and the team has had with him at quarterback. But I also know the Browns are in a tough spot because now you have to know exactly what you have in Shedeur. And people say, well, you need more than one season to know if you have something special or not. That's bogus. Not in today's NFL. Do you think that the Texans needed to see more of CJ Stroud? No, I don't think any of us did. I think we all knew, okay, CJ Stroud could play. Jaden Daniels, do you think that Washington's heading into year 2 saying, I think we need to see a little more before we know if he could play? No, we know Jaden Daniels could play. It took 11 games. Joe Burrow got hurt in week 11 against Washington, his rookie season. It took 11 games. It took 10 and a half games. You guys knew what you had in Joe Burrow. There was no, well, let's see what we have in year 2. That dude led him to a Super Bowl. Right? There is no wait and see. You either have it or you don't. Sam Darnold had that weird turnaround season last year. The Vikings thought so much of it, they moved on. Right? Like, there's just not many stories of guys taking a few years to all of a sudden emerge as a star in the quarterback room. You could tell. You either have it or you don't. And the Browns need to know, Shedeur, do you have it or you don't? I want Joe Flacco to start week 1, but I think Shedeur should be the week 1 starter. Let him prove that he is not the guy, or let him prove that he is. Because if he proves that he is the guy, now you got 2 first-round draft picks next year, and you're closer to getting that Deshaun contract off the books, and now all of a sudden the Browns have a ton of flexibility. And if Shedeur is not the guy, then guess what? You have 2 first-round draft picks next year in a quarterback-heavy draft. The Browns, the best way to navigate through this is to start Shedeur week 1. Shedeur has to be the Cleveland Browns starter. But he's a 5th-round draft. I see people keep throwing out, he's a 5th-round draft pick. He's a 5th-round draft pick. He fell to the 5th. He's not his skill set is not that of a 5th-round quarterback. It's not as if I'm asking the Browns to force a 5th-round quarterback to start week 1. This is a guy that has the confidence and the arrogance and the belief that he can lead a team to a turnaround. Let him prove it. Let him put his money that he lost where his mouth is at this point. He's been doing a lot of talking. Let him go back it up. I think Cleveland needs to start Shedeur starting week 1. I think he needs to be treated as the starting quarterback. You're going to deal with all this noise and mess. Do it for a reason. Throw him out into the fire. Let him prove sink or swim. Figure it out. If he pans out and he's good and he follows that, and the Browns are the Texans from 2 years ago and Washington from last year, great. And if not, the Browns have options. But what you can't do is you can't have Flacco start all season with Shedeur being the backup, and then you know that that Flacco is not the quarterback of the future, not even the quarterback of next season. And then you're like, well, I guess we have Shedeur, so we'll just use our 2 first-round picks on other positions, and then find out that Shedeur is not the guy next year, and then you wasted those first 2 first-round picks and didn't get a quarterback. Now you're right back to where you started without a quarterback. I think Shedeur has to start week 1. That's the only way you're going to know. Only way you're going to know when it's all said and done. It's 5:01 here in the Miami Valley. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Man, oh man, it's going to be a fun offseason for the Cleveland Browns, or at least an interesting one nonetheless. A boring offseason for the Bengals. Not a lot to talk about with the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, the Trey Hendrickson thing has run its course. I don't think the Bengals are going to budge. If they were going to trade him, it would have been before the draft to acquire more draft capital. Now that the draft has come and gone, Trey Hendrickson's not going anywhere. And I also don't think the Bengals are going to pay him long term. He has a year left on his contract. He needs to go play. Go play. Go play, Trey. Your future is not long term in Cincinnati. So just go play your final year, prove that you're worth the money that you're going to get on your next contract, and go from there. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Coming up in hour number 3, we'll dive into our conversation with Charlie Goldsmith from Off the Bench earlier today. We talked all things Cincinnati Reds. One of the questions I asked Charlie Goldsmith, simply put, we are 1 month into the Terry Francona era. What is it that he has seen from Terry Francona that has solidified this as a Terry Francona team? What is it about Terry Francona 1 month in that Charlie Goldsmith has circled and said, oh yeah, this is much different than what we seen from David Bell in seasons past? What is it about Terry Francona? What are some of the differences and changes that he has seen in this team? We talked about all of that. Tyler Stevenson, what happens when he comes back? He weighed in on that. Great conversation with Charlie Goldsmith when we come back. The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers.
At Frickers, our new $10.99 lunch combos bring the flavor fat, like frickin' chicken chunks, a big frickin' BLT, a juicy cheeseburger, or a charbroiled chicken wrap. Pick your favorites and add a side like curlicues, homemade slaw, and top it off with an ice-cold soda, all for $10.99. So why settle for boring? Frickers is where lunch wins. Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Dine in or